And now I'm live. Been having a weird thing the last couple of days where the first time I hit it, it doesn't seem to go live. And then it does after I close it out. So, that's fine by me, because if you've seen this before, I spend the first few minutes just kind of blabbing anyway, waiting for people to join in. Hello, everybody. My name is George O'Connor, which you probably know because you're actually on my Instagram right now. I am the cartoonist, the writer and illustrator of the graphic novel series Olympians. And I've been doing these daily lectures that I call Geek Speaks Greek, despite the fact I'm clearly speaking English, where I talk each day about different personages from Greek mythology, be they goddess, god, hero, or monster. Just to start, as a bit of a warm-up, if you joined us yesterday, we spoke about Cyclopes. Both the immortal kind, this is either Argus, Brontus, or Steropus, not really sure which. Or perhaps the kind that eats sailors. There's Polyphemus, the Cyclops from the Odyssey. And I asked people, because a lot of folks like to draw along as I do these, to send me some of the pictures that they did. So today, I'm going to share some of those pictures. So if you've seen this before, you know it's a very a low-tech, high-tech show. We're streaming live, but I'm literally just going to hold up pictures of my iPad. So first off is a drawing from, this is Eleanor. As you can see, despite the fact it's backwards, this is clearly Polyphemus. Eleanor's mom wrote that she wants us to know, desperately, that Polyphemus does not, in fact, have a hairy chest. He's actually wearing a shirt. So, this is a really nice drawing. It's a cool take on Polyphemus. It's not quite mine. And I love that when people have their own versions on them. I also have some good news for you, Eleanor, if you are watching. I don't know if you are. She would also love Nemesis to be included in a Minor Gods episode. Nemesis is inexplicably one of her favorites. It is an interesting choice to have Nemesis be your favorite goddess, right? But here's the thing. I'm going to announce at the end of this my schedule for the upcoming week. I think you're going to be very pleased if you're a Nemesis fan. So what else do we have here? By the way, I also feel like I should just throw this out here. This is another solo outing, meaning Super Assistant Nicole is not here to help me out. So that means pretty much you're going to hear my cats destroy something large in the background. And also, more importantly, did you hear that was something right there? Most importantly, at the end when I hold it for Q&A, if you ask a question beforehand, I might not be able to see it right away. So maybe just be prepared to ask more than once, and I will hopefully get to you. Let's see who else we have. This is a drawing of a Cyclops from Joseph. That's pretty great. He didn't actually say which one it was, but given the pose of the Cyclops, remember how we talked about how the sons of the Cyclops, one of the Cyclopes, one of them was Euryalus, the wide-stepping? We think it's maybe Euryalus, right? It's like, I'm the wide-stepping one. So that's a great drawing. Good color, too. That's a beautiful job. Thank you very much, Joseph. And nope, that's not what I want to hit. Let's do a couple more. We have actually a couple more in one thing. So these if you've watched before, you know that the brother-sister duo of Nora and Drake often write in. First, here is Nora. She drew one of the big three Cyclopes. We talked a lot about how they are actually kind of storm gods, so check it out. Holding a lightning bolt, making it rain. I love the reflection in the water. That's a great attention to detail. Way to go, Nora. And then Drake. Well, Drake's drawing apparently needs a little bit of a description for it. Because I looked at this, I'm like, oh, it's totally Polyphemus about to eat a sailor. But apparently, it's Dionysus, this guy. Which actually, if you look at him, you can see it's Dionysus. He's got the leopard skin, he's got the curly hair. It's him turning someone into a Cyclops. Not a myth I'm familiar with. In fact, maybe not a myth that's ever been written before. I think Drake maybe has created a new myth for us. So that's pretty cool. Way to go, Drake. And finally, Shiloh drew us an amazing Steropus. Now, look at that. I love the electricity coming off him. You know what this reminds me of? I don't think, Shiloh, you're going to get this reference. This reminds me of War of the Worlds. That was like an old, one of the first sci-fi novels about Martians coming to Earth. Like, there's a real cool War of the Worlds vibe of this. That's really awesome drawing. Thank you so much, Shiloh. And thank you, everybody. If you watch this and you get a hankering to send in some pictures, and I love getting your pictures, please send them to my email at georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. And I'll love to share them here. I'd love to see the things that you all draw. So, let's get down to some lecturing. So, today... Oh, there goes my cat's knocking over something. These cats. Why do I have cats? I don't know, because they're so cute. Today, we always talk about a goddess, god, hero, or monster. Monsters have been proving to be very popular. We spoke about Cyclopes yesterday, and last Friday, we spoke about Medusa. And so today, I figure I'd roll out the holy triumvirate of like super duper famous Greek mythology monsters with the Minotaur. Now, I feel like these three creatures have really transcended their roots. I feel like they've entered the echelon of just all-time great monsters. Medusa, the Cyclops, and the Minotaur. The Minotaur is half man, half bull. His name in Greek means the bull, Tar, like Taurus, of Minos, King Minos of Crete. I don't know why he's called the Minotaur. He should be called the Pasiphator, because Minos has nothing to do with this. I mean, he does kind of. Let me backtrack here. We'll start with the Minotaur's real dad, which is not Minos. It was the Bull of Crete, or the Cretan bull. You're like, wait, it's an actual bull? Makes sense. He's half man, half cow, He's like the first cowboy. So the Bull of Crete was a magnificent beast. A beautiful bull. Like, if you were like a person who understood how to like judge bulls, you'd be like, that is the best bull I've ever seen. He was sent out of the sea by nobody less than Poseidon, god of the sea, to King Minos of Crete. Crete was, it was an empire. They were like one of the first major powers of the Mediterranean. In fact, they might have been the first major one. They ruled the entire Mediterranean. They're part of Greece now, but they were like their own thing back then. And, but they're very connected, right? And they're called the Minoan Empire. They're named after, we don't know what they really call themselves. We call them Minoan after this king Minos, right? But he was incredibly powerful, ruled this kingdom that controlled the entire Mediterranean region, the entire Greek-speaking world and beyond, right? And Poseidon's like, this is a guy who, should be paying me some proper attention. So he sends him this beautiful bull, this amazing, powerful, super strong bull out of the ocean, right? And he comes, and he's like, Poseidon sends word to him like, Minos, I want you to sacrifice this bull to me. And Minos is like, this is a really nice bull. So he tries to do a switcheroo, which is like, duh, it's a god, you never fool them. So he takes another bull, which was probably a very nice bull, but it wasn't the Cretan bull. And he sacrifices it, cuts it up, burns part of it. And of course Poseidon's not fooled. And so Poseidon actually does two things. First thing he does, it's the most messed up thing, actually. It's weird, too. He makes Minos' queen, Pasiphae, he makes her fall in love with the Bull of Crete. Yeah, she literally falls in love with a bull, which is weird. Let's just not think about it too much, right? And she's like, I love this bull. I want to get close to it. But the other thing he did, Poseidon, he made this bull go crazy. So this bull was this crazy rampaging beast. It's too big for anyone to kill, right? It's just like, in fact, this thing rampages for years until many years later during one of his labors. Heracles, who we spoke about the other day, Heracles comes and he captures the Bull of Crete as I think it's like his 8th labor, might be his 7th. And then, like, that bull would rampage all that time. Does other stuff. We'll talk about that. It's cool. It's like how, like, you read a Marvel comic and, like, Doctor Strange is doing something, like, in an issue of X-Men. And then, like, maybe, like, all these crossovers. The Cretan Bull crossovers and into all these different myths. So you can't get close to the Cretan Bull. And she's in love with him anyway, which is just weird. So they have this very famous Athenian inventor working for them, King Minos and Queen Pasiphae. And his name is Daedalus. And she says to Daedalus, I need you to make me like some sort of weird kind of robotic exoskeleton, like an iron cow sort of thing, so I could dress up as a cow and go visit with the Cretan bull. And Daedalus, I guess he's just like, he's get asked crazy stuff all the time. He's like, sure, man, I'll do that. So he makes her this sort of conveyance so she can like be disguised as a bull. She's inside this bull and she visits with the bull, right? She's inside this cow. She visits with the Cretan bull. And then 9 months later, she has a baby. Now, it's pretty obvious that this is not a normal baby right at first. I think King Minos is kind of like, cool, having another kid. Because he already has Princess Ariadne. More about her later. But, guys, stop fighting. See, this is what happens. The cats. But, the drama. This baby's born. Immediately it's clear he's weird. Because he's got horns and he's got hooves and stuff. I feel like I should actually draw the Minotaur at this point. So, the Minotaur is drawn a lot of different ways. And I kind of like, most ancient Greek art depicted him, it's pretty obvious. He's just like a well-built guy. Like, not like huge, but pretty big. And he's got the head of a bull. I kind of used that as my departure point, but I really pushed it. Because I'm like, all right, he's half man, half bull. Let's give him like kind of a human form, but let's give him like the heft of a bull. Like, you look at a bull. I don't know if you've ever been close to a bull. It's stunning how large they really are. Like, we know they're big, but when you're next to one, the power that radiates off this creature is immense. So I'm like, hey, let's make him actually like as big as a bull. So to start, when I draw him, I give him big, long horns. The horns look cool. And also, if you ever go to Crete, which you can do nowadays, they go to Crete, actually. You go to Crete, and you could go visit Knossos, which used to be the capital of Crete, and it's where Minos lived. There's like all these old Minoan temples and such. You will see horns that look like this all over the place. It was actually a symbol of Crete. And so, I knew that as far as what sort of cow he was, because some cows have little tiny horns, he is a bull with mighty, mighty horns. I give him big, long ears, because, he has ears. My Minotaur has a little bit of adornment. He's, he wears clothes, thank goodness. But I also give him earrings. Here's his eyes. He's got little eyes, because, he's a huge bull man. I gave him the ring in his nose that a lot of bulls have. And there's actually reasonings for this. I'll get to that at the end, though. But, I don't think... A little bit of spoilers. I don't think that the Minotaur was all bad. I have my doubts about this. I think, and there's evidence to support this, that for a while, the Minotaur, King Minos and Queen Pasiphae, actually tried to raise the Minotaur amongst the rest of their family. He was, definitely different and weird, but they tried to, he was still of royal blood. And they tried to, make him, until it became apparent they couldn't do it anymore. So... the ring in his nose is the same reason that they put rings in the nose of bulls now. That was to control him. But the rings in his ears, I think that Ariadne used just to play dress up with him. I even have a line in Poseidon where she talks about how she used to stick garlands on his horns and in his hair. She used to dress him up. She was her little brother, and he was like a little bull guy, and he was really cute when he was little, and then he got huge. So I gave him a bit of a hunchback. Enormous, thick arms. And his arms, I tend to draw longer than his legs. He can almost become a quadruped at times. He can get down on all fours. He also, I normally draw him with, chains on his arms. A lot of the stuff he wears is things that have been put on him to help control him. Because, like I said, they tried to keep him as a normal person, and it eventually just got too hard. And they needed to find some place to put him. And eventually, that job fell to Daedalus, the same guy who built the conveyance for Pasiphae to get close to the Cretan bull. Now, of course, I should mention, he wasn't called the Minotaur. Minotaur is not his real name. Just like Heracles is not his real name. Heracles was Alcides, the son of Alcmene. That's his real name. Remember that. Test it later. The Minotaur's real name is Asterion. Asterion means the starry one. And that's a kind of beautiful name, isn't it? And there's a couple reasons I think he's called Asterion, right? For one thing, that kind of feeds into my whole idea that when he was born, he was cute, and they're like, he's the starry one. We know that the Greeks, we talked about this in the Hera episode, the Greeks valued cows' eyes. They thought they were beautiful. So I think he had giant, brilliant, sparkly eyes when he was a kid, which is one of the reasons he's called Asterion. The other reason, and I know this is going to make a lot of the astrology fans here very excited, and I'm thinking of you, Super Assistant Nicole, I saw you typing stuff. So Taurus, one of the symbols of the zodiac, the most stubborn symbol of the sign of the zodiac. It's actually, the zodiac comes from ancient Greece, and most of it is mythology connected. The zodiac, Taurus, is the Cretan bull, the father of Asterion. And Asterion is the starry one because he comes from Taurus. So there's this real connection. In fact, some people think that maybe he is the Taurus. So if you're really proud of being a Taurus and you want to be you also like the Minotaur, you're a Minotaur. You could be a Minotaur. So yeah, he actually has this real connection to the zodiac sign. I'll try to remember whenever I can, bring this up, because I think it's really cool the way that that they're all tied in with Greek mythology. So, where were we? Asterion, he's getting so big. He weighs a quarter of a ton at least, probably more like a half a ton. He's very strong, doesn't mean to be. Also, kind of unfortunately, he might not be as smart as a normal person because, his dad's a bull. So maybe he's a little bit slower. He's hard to control. They need some place to put him. Pasiphae and Minos. Well, probably more Minos. I feel like Pasiphae is maybe not in the picture anymore. Giving birth to a giant cow baby is probably pretty hard. They build a labyrinth. You've probably heard of the Labyrinth. The Labyrinth is one of the most famous stories coming out of Greek mythology. Daedalus was the most gifted human inventor there is. In fact, only Hephaestus could surpass Daedalus in terms of his ingenuity and his creativity. And he made this impenetrable maze. They call it the Labyrinth. There was a door in the front of it, but it was just endless corridors that just changed. And it was underneath the palace of Knossos in Crete, where Minos lived. And it was just, nobody could navigate this thing. You would go in there, and you'd be lost forever. It was full of so many twists and turns, and it was just this amazing work of art. And inside it, they put our poor buddy Asterion. Now, there he lives. Now, remember his dad, the Cretan bull? Remember I said he went crazy, rampaged all over the place? Unfortunately, the Cretan bull totally stepped on one of King Minos' sons. Killed him while he was in Athens. And that's kind of a bad news so clearly the bull can get around. It's all the way in Athens now. That's it had to swim across the water, but that's neither here nor there. And so Minos is really mad. And he, like I said, controls the Mediterranean at this point. Nobody can stand against the Minoans. He sends an army. They conquer Athens. Just totally conquer them. And to make up for it, because he lost his son. And I'd say at this point, he's kind of a broken man. He's lost his son. His other, maybe quasi-son, is a big half-bull. He makes the Athenians give him a tribute. And I think it changes in source to source. So I think what I did, I should read my own books before I do this, as I think it's every 7 years, the Athenians have to send 7 young men and 7 young women to Crete. And they come there, and those people are put into the labyrinth to be devoured by the Minotaur. I'll get back to that later. I have my doubts. And so this is something that's been going on for a few years now. And finally, after this has been going on, and Athens is still under the yoke of this cruel King Minos, and sending off its best and brightest to be eaten by a giant man-cow, this guy Theseus comes. We've talked about Theseus. I'm not the biggest Theseus fan in the world. There's a lot of reasons why. I'll have to do an episode. I should really do an episode on Theseus where I could talk about what a creepazoid Theseus is. Theseus is a creepazoid. He shows up. He's got some connections to the story. He is legit the son of Poseidon. So, this is kind of a Poseidon thing going on here. But he's coming here on he's also, in a way that's kind of hard to explain. I'll get to the Theseus myth and the Theseus episode. He's kind of also the son of Augeas, who is the king of Athens. We'll get to that. He's really the son of Poseidon. That's what you need to know, because he's godly. So he comes and he takes the place of one of the people to be put into the labyrinth. And they're like, why do you want to be here? He's like, I'm going to kill the Minotaur. Now, Theseus, being the son of Poseidon, is super good looking. And he's got, he's super powered. He's very, very strong. He's like a demigod. Except for probably Heracles, he's probably the single most powerful demigod. Oh, and Dionysus being more powerful than both of them, of course. So he's really strong, very impressive, commands the room, and he announces his intentions. He wants to go into the labyrinth. Now remember, even if he goes into the labyrinth, even if he doesn't have to worry about being killed by this giant bull, there's still no way he's getting out of that labyrinth. It was designed by the most brilliant mind on the planet Earth so that once you go in, you can't get out. And Theseus hasn't thought about that. He's just always been kind of, as the son of a god, certain things fall into place for him, right? So I mentioned he's super good looking, right? Ariadne, the daughter of Minos and Pasiphae, she kind of sees this guy, and there's something about him. He's half Poseidon. She goes to him and she's like, she feels something for him. I wouldn't call it love, but it's the beginnings of that, maybe. And she's a lot smarter than Theseus, and she's like, here's what you do. She gives him a sword wrapped up in a cloak, because he can't go in there with a weapon, right? She gives him a spool of thread. She's like, tie one side of this to the door, and no matter where you wander in the labyrinth, you'll be able to follow the string back and get out after you kill the Minotaur, who is her brother. So understand, this is not something she probably did easy. So Theseus goes into the labyrinth. He ties the string in the door. He tells the other Athenians, he's like, yeah, you guys wait here. And he comes and he walks around, and we don't know how long he walks. Let's just assume it's for a long, long time. He's walking around, turning corners, getting lost, sometimes going back when he reaches a dead end. Eventually, he comes across the Minotaur. In some versions of the story, the Minotaur is just plain old sleeping and he kills him. In some versions, there's like this giant battle. One of the cool ones, I think they actually do an echo of this in Percy Jackson, as I recall. He breaks off the Minotaur's horn and stabs him with his own horn. But what we pretty much all agree on is Theseus, no matter how it is, through treachery or through a battle, he kills Asterion, the Minotaur. He takes his head and brings him out of the labyrinth. And then he and Ariadne run away to live not happily ever after. But I'll get to that in another episode sometime. Because actually, I'm telling the continuation of Ariadne's story in my book I'm working on right now, Dionysus. Let's just say Theseus is the biggest creep who ever lived. Can we agree on that? Okay. Sorry for the guy. Just as somebody said he was Theseus in a play. He does some good stuff, but I mean, come on. He really is. He's got some bad stuff too. So I started this off saying how I feel like the Minotaur, along with Medusa and the Cyclopes, have become like this level of monster that transcends even the fame it's attributed them in Greek myth. Like they are just generic monsters now. If you say them, everyone in the world knows what these three monsters are, right? But like Medusa in particular, when I talked about her, I really talked about how she was very misunderstood, right? I personally, this is my belief, and I'm going to put some things for it. I think the Minotaur is misunderstood. So first off, there's this whole idea of him eating people. Now, he's half man, half bull. Now, bulls don't eat people. And people shouldn't eat people. For the most part, they don't. But this is Greek mythology, so people are getting eaten all the time. So really, there's nothing in his makeup that really makes him inclined to be a man-eater. If he was like, half man, half shark, or half man, half alligator, or half man, half lion, or wolf, or anything, it would make more sense. But he's literally an animal that eats grass and has two stomachs to deal with it. So he's probably got a really big belly, two stomachs. I just don't think that he's a man-eater. I think he is a giant, unfortunately, kind of a little bit of a half-wit, lumbering guy. He's like a man who is maybe 6 or 7 times too big and doesn't know his own strength and likes to play and get rambunctious, but when he does that, he can hurt people accidentally. Now, those 7 men and 7 women that kept getting stuck into the labyrinth over the years, does he eat them? Or does the fact that the labyrinth is impenetrable and no one can escape, do they just kind of wander around until they eventually die of starvation or thirst or from falling off something? Or maybe they still live in there. Maybe there's a whole society of people who are descended from there still living underneath Knossos. I don't know. You can go to Crete. I was there. I didn't see it, but I mean, maybe I didn't recognize them. Maybe they were there. There's a couple of modern takes on Well, actually, because he's so famous, you don't have to search hard to see versions of the Minotaur where he's in other stories. There's a couple of modern day takes, or close to modern day takes, I want to share that really kind of like informed my version of him. The one that did the most for me is a story by Bourget called La Casa de Asterion, or as I read in English because I don't read Spanish, The House of Asterion. And it's a story told from his point of view. And there we go, we're back, and I went and grabbed my book. In this story, we're treated to a very sympathetic point of view from Asterion. He narrates it. I don't want to give away too many spoilers because it's definitely worth a read. But things are not as you necessarily expect. But I love that story so much that I actually have a line from it as a tribute in my book Poseidon, which tells the story of the Minotaur, among others. There he is, looking pretty awesome. So here is the actual line. It's the final line of the Casa de Asterion. Can you believe it, Ariadne? The Minotaur barely defended himself. It's Theseus. The story ends, spoilers, he gets killed. But it's the whole, I think that's key. He didn't defend himself because he's a half man, half cow. He's not a vicious beast. He's a poor, misguided figure. Very powerful if he wants to be. But, he didn't stand a chance against a rampaging demigod. And then, just to make it sadder, I'm going to read you the next line. This is when Ariadne, there's the dead Minotaur. Ariadne sees the severed head of her brother, and she tells Theseus, his name was Asterion. When we were children, for a time my father tried to raise him with us, before he grew too big, too dangerous. I used to put flowers on his horns. Oh, it's sad. It's sad because he was just a simple little cow baby. I should draw a picture of him as a cow baby. And while I'm doing that as a cow baby, this is what I think baby Minotaur looked like. I want to mention another book that Super Assistant Nicole made sure I mentioned. It's called The Helmet of Horror. The Helmet of Horror is a book by Victor Pelevin, I believe it is. And it's a very modern day retelling of Asterion's story. Where in this version, the Labyrinth is like the World Wide Web. And the whole story is told in a series of instant messaging and such. And it's I haven't read it, but she's told me about it many times. It should be on my list of things to read. But she's like, you have to mention that it's the coolest story. Now, she is an enormous... He just wants to be left alone like Medusa, and these guys want to come in and be heroes. That's what Super Assistant Nicole says. Yeah! That's a lot of the story. You'll notice a lot of times when I talk about heroes in this podcast, I talk about heroes because a lot of times they're not heroes. They're just like these monsters. Medusa is cursed by the gods. The Minotaur is a kind of messy, leftover revenge of the gods. These are just poor, broken creatures and souls that want to be left alone, and these heroes to make names for themselves come and kill them. Yes, Nicole is adding Ariadne is the keeper of the chat thread that they use to she kind of is helping snare new victims, I guess, for the Minotaur in this version. So there's his little horns. He's got little horns. You gotta figure they weren't very big when they came out. Now remember, I was saying how the Greeks really valued big eyes, and I was hypothesizing that one of the reasons he was called Asterion is because he had the big cow eyes full of twinklies. So let's give him some nice shines there. Let's give him a little tiny nose. He's not pierced yet. And he's probably really pretty big and chubby, so... And I like to draw big fat babies. Weirdly, I feel like I've drawn quite a few babies on these. I drew ugly baby Hephaestus. I drew baby Hermes. I feel like I've drawn another baby too. So maybe this is the thing. Maybe we should always draw them as babies. Just occurs he should probably have a couple of pecs because he's a cow. And we'll put him in a diaper. Oh my god, can you imagine what the diaper for the Minotaur must have been like? When he's a baby, this is the other thing, he didn't eat... Were they feeding him meat? Were they giving him fingers? No, he was probably eating grass. Or maybe they gave him burritos or something, I don't know. And he had little tiny legs with little tiny hooves. I can't remember if my Minotaur has a tail or not. Let's assume he had a tail. Maybe he loses it later in life if he doesn't. So there's my baby Minotaur. How do you guys think? So, Okay, so that was today's lecture on the Minotaur. It was pretty good in threading, get it? A couple of other things I really need to talk about. Like, we definitely need to hit Theseus, right? I definitely want to talk about Ariadne. I have a lot to say about Ariadne. I think that's a fascinating case. Daedalus. My gosh, I have so much to say about Daedalus. Daedalus is one of those guys who... He's barely in my books. I think he makes a couple cameo appearances in Poseidon, maybe elsewhere. He's been cut out of stories. I've talked about a lot of times my future plans is like I would love to come back after I finish Asgardians, the next series I'm doing, and just do like a couple of not a couple, just keep doing books where I tell Greek myths that aren't so specifically tied into the Olympians. And Daedalus is top of that list, man. He's got so many cool stories. Like, just talking about how he built the Labyrinth. He's also, Icarus, the guy who flew too close to the sun. That's his kid. There's all this crazy stuff about Daedalus. So, Asteos 19 says, so cute. Asteos, you're very close to Asterion. It's a connection. So this is when I would like to throw it open for some questions. And I know there's a little bit of a lag, and maybe people have asked already, so let me just scroll through. Half shark, alligator, half man. That would be a pretty cool monster. Theseus. I don't think we had any questions yet. So, I guess I'll just keep talking for a little bit. Maybe, let me take a sip of water. I would hate to have to end it before any questions came in, but I don't know how long people want to sit there and just watch me either. You know what? This is actually a good time to mention how there's going to be a little bit of a change in the way I do these. Going forward, so I've been doing this just about every single day, right? Not normally on the weekends, but Monday through Friday. It's been taking a lot of time, and I don't mind it. In fact, I really love it. I get a lot from doing these things. I love connecting with everybody this way. But there's so many things that are coming up. This takes so much time. I'm not getting as much work done on working on Dionysus as I'd like to. So for next week, I'm going to try out a new schedule. And I'll be posting this on my thing. I think I'm only going to be doing Geek Speaks Greek on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So we're going to make it an every other day thing. Make it a little bit more special, too. I know it's hard for you to check in every single day. And some days I'm just not doing as much exciting stuff. But here's the other cool thing. And Eleanor, this harkens back to what I said at the very beginning. Next week, I thought of a theme. So a lot of times people ask me about a goddess or a god or a hero or monster, for whatever reason, never actually appeared in Olympians. Normally because they don't have a strong enough connection, or they don't appear enough in myth, or something. So I thought it would be really cool for the next week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday if I did a series of lectures about gods or goddesses or whomever that actually haven't been in my books. So I'll tell you their stories, I'll tell you about them, and then I'm going to kind of design them on the spot. Like I just did with this baby Minotaur. I'm going to actually draw what the goddess would look like in my version. And the first one on Monday is going to be, Eleanor, this is for you. It's going to be Nemesis. Nemesis has never appeared in Olympians. I'm going to draw Nemesis. We're going to do it live. I'm going to create Nemesis, my version of Nemesis, live in front of you. Then, on Wednesday, I'm going to do the mother of Nemesis, Nyx. I don't know why I said it like that. Nyx, the goddess of night. I mean, maybe I'll just sit there and just color the whole thing with the black Sharpie and then I'll pass out because the fumes. I don't know. We're not sure what happens. And then I was thinking, I'm pretty sure for Friday, I'm going to do Amphitrite, the queen of the sea, Poseidon's wife, who has somehow not really ever appeared in Olympians. Or if she has, she's maybe appeared for a panel and I don't even remember what I drew. But I have some real clear ideas in my head of how she looks. Which maybe she's been there. I don't know. If she's been in there, let me know. So that's going to be Monday, I design Nemesis. Wednesday, I design Nyx. Friday, I design Amphitrite. Now, I've seen a million things come up, so hopefully there's some questions. Let's go over there, see what we got. Most powerful minor god. That's an excellent question. Depends what you determine minor. Like, I would say the first thing that occurred to me was the Fates, who I don't know if they actually constitute minor. They're not Olympians. You normally don't count them among the 12 great gods, but they have a power that bind even the Olympians. Like they spin out, and the Olympians kind of aren't bound by them because they spin out the mortal lifespans, right? Like there's the spool of thread, and they measure out and they cut it. It's Clothos, Atropos, and Lakeith, I think. Oh man, I hate when I blank on these, but I think they're the most powerful because like they fate something, like, and the gods even have to do it. And one of the things that makes Zeus so extraordinary and unique among the Olympians is he's the only god to bend fate. He very famously bends fate in the story of the birth of Athena. Athena, which I've mentioned a few times in here, but just to recap briefly, was fated to overthrow Zeus. But in his act of swallowing her mother, Metis, while she was pregnant, and Athena growing up inside of his head, Athena has this understanding of Zeus that's so profound and deep, she doesn't want to overthrow her father, and she becomes his most valuable child, his like right-hand person. And so I feel like that sort of power that goes to the fates, if we can count them as minor gods, which minor goddesses, I guess, I think they are another level of power. Let's see what else we got. Wow, that's a great question. So Addie asks, does the Minotaur get lost in the labyrinth? Yeah, I think the Minotaur is hopelessly lost in the labyrinth. A little bit of spoilers. You guys ready for a little bit of spoilers? I mentioned the Borgia story, La Casa de Asterion. In that, because he is lost, he takes the bodies of the people that are put into the labyrinth and he leaves them in different rooms so he has a marker to tell where he is. But even so, there's so many rooms and corridors and alleyways and stuff that he can't possibly know it all. But he's mapped out a certain area by using these bodies as a reminder. He comes in like, there's the guy in that position, I know him in this room. It's a little dark, but yeah, he's definitely lost. He's in there for the protection of the Minoan people as well on Crete. The Cretans, will say, because they wouldn't call them Minoan back then. So it's like he's this giant lumbering man beast. He's wandering around just as lost as everybody else is. Super Assistant Nicole has a question. Put 3 Greek monsters together to make a legal monster. Oh no, Greek, not legal. What would you combine and what would you call it? Okay, that's a good question that calls for some drawing. Now, the part of me that's a wise Alec kind of wants to take something like the Chimera right off the bat, which is already a mixture of a bunch of creatures, and then maybe put Typhon, which is a bunch, but that's just going to be madness. So what if we do the big 3 that I just talked about? We do Medusa, Cyclops, and Minotaur together. So, and let's just take the most notable features of each of them. So I figure one big eye, horns, and lots of snakes. I kind of get lost sometimes drawing the snakes. It's really fun to draw snakes. What sort of face? Guess let's give it like a little bit of a cow face, but with like snake fangs. You know what this looks like? I've only played D&D a little bit. There's a creature called the Beholder. This looks like the Beholder in it. And then let's give it Medusa's body. So it's just like kind of like a lady wearing a dress. And she's waving. And we could call her, well, so it's Medusa, Minotaur, and Cyclops. Medusa? Minosa? No. Let's see. Minotaur. How do we like it? The Minotaur. The first time we've ever seen this creature. It's totally legal. Okay. How else do we have here? When and why did people stop believing in the gods? Wow, that's a really interesting question. And how do I say this? Okay, so it's a gradual process in different parts of the world. Basically, I mean, really what happens is, so in the belief in the gods spreads across the Mediterranean. The gods referring to the the Greek and Roman gods, and specifically in Rome, Rome becomes the center of the entire Western world. The Romans had a very cool and open idea about gods. And it was basically like this. They believed everyone's gods were real, which I really appreciate that. I wish more religions nowadays took this attitude. Everybody now, it's like, it's mine or nobody else. If the Romans met a new group of people that believed in a new god, say they were, this is something they would literally do. They were fighting a group of people who had a god, say his name is Fred, the god Fred. They would build a temple in Rome or one of their properties, their territories, to Fred. They would try to convince that god to come over. So they were always absorbing new gods. And eventually, one of their emperors, this guy Constantine, he started believing in a god that kind of, it became that thing where there's the one god above all others. And we kind of see this is the era, there's a reason when you see times, there's the BCE, that's what we call the olden times, before the Christian era, and then there's AD, Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. There's probably another term for that. Basically, Christianity happened. And it actually became something that got, because you could only believe in the one God, people stopped believing in the Greek gods, for the most part. There's definitely pockets of things that have survived, or if they didn't survive, they've come back. There's people, I get letters from people who believe in the gods, and I think that's super cool, who worship the gods. There's very few of them, but I'm glad that there's still some people who do, because I think these are really cool stories. I really like these gods. And I like that attitude that it's you can all believe in whatever you want. And like I said, I wish there was more of that elsewhere. That was a little bit heavy question. I liked it. So then we have a question. From Casey. Hi, Casey. Where did they put him before they placed him in the Labyrinth? Oh, that's actually from Braden, Casey's kid. So the way I envision it, and he actually lived in the palace for a while. I think, so here's the thing, a lot of this is my conjecture. I do a lot of kind of weird science-y stuff when I work in these things, I research things. Bulls grow really fast. So I think baby Asterion was probably pretty good for a year or two. But by age 2, he was getting really large. He would have been as big as a normal person at least. So I think he was raised in the palace, and then they probably cleared out a banquet hall and had a room with really tough toys in it. And maybe they started building up gates, and then maybe he accidentally stepped on his teacher or something. And they're we really have to find a place for this. But they had to have kept him in the palace for a while for them to build the labyrinth, at least to start to build the labyrinth. Daedalus spent years working in the labyrinth, and he actually lived in the labyrinth himself, so he kept adding onto it. And he had to have made it big enough that he didn't have to worry about running into the Minotaur, because there is the off chance the Minotaur did eat people. And if it didn't eat people, he could accidentally kill them very easily. And King Minos, we know, after it kind of got out, because people started calling him the Minotaur to kind of make fun of King Midas. And once people figured out that's not your kid, that's the Cretan Bull's kid. So I think he was almost certainly kept in the palace in order to stop people from looking at him too. And also because he was, whether he intended to be or not, a guy that weighs 1,500 pounds of pure muscle and is got about as smart as a bull is going to cause some damage, especially if you're wearing a red shirt accidentally. So let's see. Will you continue your series of drawing the gods in your website? Oh, cool. Yeah, on my website, there is a series of videos where I just do really quick instruction. My website, by the way, is georgeoconnorbooks.com. Kind of like this. Just cover the email part. Cover the Gmail. georgeoconnorbooks.com. Go to the website. I'm holding it wrong. Yes. Okay. High tech. If you go to my website, join my mailing list, you get sent an exclusive digital Olympians comic. It's the only place to get it by signing up for the mailing list. So that's an incentive. But also there's videos there where you can, I show you how to draw some of the gods. I think I have Zeus up there, Athena, Hera, Hades. Don't remember who else. If people are interested, I would love to do more because those were really fun to do. I've been doing these where I kind of talk about and I draw, but I'm not really showing you step by step. Where in those I actually show. So if you're interested in learning how to draw the gods, goddesses, heroes, whatever, the way I do, send me some email if you want to see some at georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com, and I could do some more. That'd be fun. Let's see. Do you think that Medusa and the Minotaur would be a good couple? Aw. Well, okay. They both have tragic backstories. They're both victims of the gods. They're both very misunderstood. Medusa is definitely retained her full human intellect, in my opinion. My version of the Minotaur, I don't think has. Although, actually, in Bourget's version, he's very smart. And in other versions, he has full human intellect. I think it depends entirely on how smart the Minotaur is. My version, I would say no. Also, I mean, just because she became a horrible snake monster doesn't mean that Medusa is suddenly going to find cow people attractive. I don't know. Also, it doesn't say that just because he's a cow person, he's going to find snake ladies attractive. I think it would be really nice if those two most famous monsters of Greek mythology could get together and have an understanding and find happiness, but I feel like the odds are stacked against them. But I would love it if somebody wrote a story where they did. I would read that in a heartbeat. And then they could have a baby, and the baby could be, what did I call it? The Psy Minotaur. Yeah, that's better than Psy Medusa, right? That just sounds weird. Let's see, who else we got here? What about the bull jumpers? Would you try it? All right, requires some backstory. Bull jumping was a sport in ancient Crete. We know this because a lot of their art was preserved on walls, and there's a series of murals that shows it. Basically, the young Athenian youths, young Cretan youths, both man and female, they'd be kind of like, they'd be naked, and they would like have these bulls with these giant long horns, just like that, charge at them, and there was the sport they would do as a presentation for them, where the bull would lower its horns, run at them, and they would kind of like grab the horns and hold on to it and like vault over the beast's back as it came towards them, and like presumably the bull would like throw its head back so they'd be kind of thrown through the air. No, I would never do that. That's insane. Look at me. I'm not athletic. I'd be killed in an instant. But people did that. And in fact, in Poseidon, because of the Cretan and Minoan roots of this story, I actually have a sequence. It's a little hard to see, but you can see that Theseus, he vaults over the Minotaur's horns. He's doing it Minoan style. But yeah, no, I wouldn't try that. That's nuts. If you try that, send me a video. Here's a great question. Why wouldn't Athena be angry at her father for swallowing her mother? That's an excellent question, because really, I talked repeatedly about how Athena has this deep understanding of her father, having grown up in her thoughts. And so she's actually his closest ally. But yeah, she spent her entire childhood entombed in her father's head. And her mother never seems to regain corporeal form again. Metis, her name, that's Athena's mother, that was the Greek word for thoughts. And the Greeks, a lot of people, I don't actually, I see pictures in my head, but a lot of people have voices in their head that talk to them, like that's their thought process. When the ancient Greeks would hear that voice in their head, they didn't recognize it was them necessarily. They literally thought it was Metis, like she was this creature of thought that spoke to them. So her mom is basically goes from being a flesh and blood like goddess to being something that's like trapped in people, not just Zeus's head, but I guess everyone's head across the entire world. And so her mom's not really in her life. And like, why isn't she mad? And I did think about this. So in my book, Athena, is it Athena? I think it's Athena. Yes. She's actually talking about, to her friend Pallas, she's actually talking about her mother. Because her friend Pallas mistakenly believes that she is the daughter of Hera and Zeus. She's like, oh no, Zeus is my dad. Hera's not my mom. And then she talks about, like, I remember this figure sort of. Like this woman who like spoke to me and helped me. So I kind of came up with the idea that somehow the birthing process, being created, not, coming out of Zeus's head, let's say, she's already been created. Like the world that existed before that was a bit of a dream for her. So even though she has this profound and deep understanding of the way her father thinks, like there's a line in there where she grows up fighting his anxieties and worries and nightmares and stuff. She understands it on like this deep primal level, but I don't think she has a very clear memory of that. So unfortunately for Metis is kind of a character who is just kind of like a footnote in her daughter's life. I don't even know, does Athena fully understand the story of where she come from? Maybe Athena thinks she was born from her dad's head. I think Athena knows something's up. But because there's this weird haziness to her, she doesn't carry the anger with her one would expect. Or if she does, maybe she's playing a super long game and she's waiting one day just to really get Zeus for it. I don't know. In fact, I maybe even showed that in, wait, let me see. I'm going to really quickly, I maybe even hinted towards that might be the idea in the scene where they overthrow Poseidon. I know this is arresting stuff watching me as I'm, nope, that's not the one I drew. Okay. Just seeing if maybe that was the reason why she overthrew Zeus and Poseidon briefly with Poseidon and Hera. That's a great question. My answer is kind of delving into the realm of my own take on it, as opposed to something mythology conclusively answers, but I hope that makes sense. Who is my favorite minor god or goddess? Looking at my Olympians poster off to the side, my favorite minor god is probably Pan, because, you know, he's awesome. And like I like Pan, and if you look at the book, I basically drew myself as Pan. And my favorite minor goddess is Eris, the goddess of causing trouble. I haven't gotten to do enough with her yet. I don't know if she doesn't appear in that many stories. I love to sneak her in wherever I can, and she's just a fun character. So I think those are my two favorites. Does Hera have a better relationship with Athena compared to Zeus's other daughters, since Metis predates their marriage? I would say, if you think of Zeus's other daughters, with the exception of Hebe, who was actually her daughter by Zeus, Hera does seem to have a better relationship with Athena. And I don't know, in my mind, it does make a lot of sense because it is a prior relationship. So there's not that sense of betrayal baked in. It's not Zeus was having an affair. Like, as shown in Hephaestus, Zeus literally misses the birth of Hephaestus because he's off running around with Leto, Artemis, and Apollo's mom. Yeah, she doesn't like those two. But I think another reason, I think she still viewed Hera viewed Athena with distrust, but it's something you kind of see happen gradually in the series. They are given kind of a mutual enemy in Aphrodite. And there's the famous, the competition, the Judgment of Paris, where Aphrodite wins over them. They're kind of like together in that. And then you see in the Trojan War, and I illustrate this in my book, Ares, Athena and Hera actually work together on several occasions in that. And I kind of feel like they eventually develop this kind of like, it starts off as a begrudging admiration, and then I think they kind of actually enjoy each other. And as antiquity goes on, you even see them getting grouped together a lot. In Rome, the three most important gods, they called it the Capitoline Triad. It was Zeus, Jupiter, or Jehovah, as they would call him on every day, Minerva, which was Athena, and Juno, Hera. So I feel like the three of them together had this like real understanding. And yeah, I feel like she does go with them, but it does make sense too. It's also not the case of like, who was Zeus running around with you? Who's your mom again? Okay, yeah, I know who your mom is, but this one makes sense. Thank you. The Florida Forager mentions, because I said, Anno Domini, that doesn't work. CE, the Common Era. That's what we call nowadays. So this is the year 2020 CE. And then the BCE wouldn't be before the Christian era, it would be before the Common Era. I actually knew that, and I didn't think of that. So thank you very much. What else we got? If Medusa, the Minotaur, and the Cyclops had symbols, what would they be? Well, they probably do have symbols. But just quickly, if I were to make those up, and I'm going to use a circle for all of them, this would be a nice, easy one for a Cyclops. Right? An eye, we get it. For the Minotaur, just put some horns on it. That works pretty easy. And for Medusa, I'd make that looks like a weird virus or something. I'm just trying to draw cheap snakes real quick. I draw a bunch of snakes. I mean, I think that works okay, right? This one's the most iconic, but from there, I mean, I think that works pretty good. Oh my gosh, I just realized what time it is. We almost are wrapped up here. Because it cuts off exactly in 6 minutes. 2 good questions there. Will I ever do one on Leto? Yes, I should absolutely do an episode on Leto. That's definitely one to put on the list. Where in the underworld would Hades put Asterion? What? Oh man, does he have a shade? Does he count as human? Does he die when does he? That's a great question. I don't know. Write to me if you have a theory about that one. That would be something great to hear. Wrong piece of paper. Send me an email at George O'Connor Books. I'd love to hear that one. And there's one more question. Did Ares ever attempt revenge on Hephaestus after being captured on the gold net? Oh yeah, he does. You could read it in Hephaestus. He shows up and he gets thumped by Hephaestus. Hephaestus whoops him. Okay, so how many books do you accept to be signed at your meet and greets? I sign every book I can, unless there's just impossible. But I try to sign every single book I can. So let me wrap this up. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in. I love this so much. If you've missed an episode or you want to watch an episode again, go to my YouTube, George Olympians. I always put them up there. Sometimes they're even clearer there because I know sometimes the reception is not great. If you draw any pictures of symbols or, well, that's Cyclops. Didn't mean to go back that far. Baby Minotaurs, whatever, send them to me, please, at georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. And reminder, in the week to come, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here at the George O'Connor, but I'm only going to be appearing here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And Monday, I will be designing Nemesis. On Wednesday, I'll be designing her mother, Nyx. And on Friday, the Queen of the Sea herself. The biggest omission, as far as I'm concerned, not to have been featured more prominently in Olympian's book, Amphitrite, the bride of Poseidon. She's got to be a lot to put up with that guy. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Any other questions you have, write me there, please. And I'll hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll see you all right here, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.